I did 3 the other day. I got to do 4. And I wouldn't leave until I did 4. And then the next time I do 5. And it got to the point where I'd like titrate up my progression in some way that was tangible.
Wow, you did more approaches than last time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So pickup artist stuff, totally different. So, well, sort of, I guess, like being.
I love how you're leading this. You've got the computer, like you're actually leading the podcast. You're on my podcast, but you're guiding it.
I actually liked delving into that. That was cool. If you have any specific questions for me, by all means.
Sounds good.
So PUA stuff. So as some of you may or may not know, my channel name, More Plates, More Dates, obviously. Based around, it was sort of just, a name I thought was catchy when I was in my early 20s, and I thought was, sort of encompassed somewhat of what my channel talks about, which is, like, to be honest, I don't actually care if I, lift more plates or, like, the more dates, whatever. It just sounds good, and it was catchy and memorable. But I did talk about dating dynamics and, like, social dynamics and stuff quite a bit when I was first starting. It's because when I was younger, I was like not crippled with social anxiety, but I was not very successful in social interactions to the point that it compelled me to like really disproportionately achieve in that area, to where I kind of like made up for my lack of success in my teen years.
I can relate.
So I ended up going on like these forums and shit and like learning about pickup artist stuff.
RSD?
Yeah.
Did you follow Tyler?
Yeah. So that guy I told you about, Chris, earlier, he actually used to hang out with Tyler and Mystery and Neil Strauss and those guys.
That gang.
Yeah. And he did the dumb like peacocking shit and stuff like that.
I tried that when I was younger.
Yeah.
I had a friend who, anyway, you continue.
Yeah. So that whole thing was what compelled me about it, is this idea that they explain in this book called The Game, where they outline how basically they laid it out in a way that it didn't matter how good you looked or anything. Rather, it was about how good you were with like game and talking, essentially. And that really, in my head, was very compelling, because I thought, wow, like you can acquire this skill that's superior to others in a way that allows you to get, women. I got to learn this thing. I got to figure it out. So I read The Game, literally wrote down the mystery method stack on a piece of paper like a fucking nerd, and brought it with me.
Openers?
Yeah, brought it with me to clubs. I had my DHV spikes. I had my my set openers that you probably said the same ones as me.
Displaying higher value spikes.
Yeah, like, did you see the fight outside? Like, blah, blah, blah. And you like say the same fucking story that every other guy has said.
That shit doesn't work, though.
Yeah, so what I quickly found out is that stuff, because it's not true, first of all, but is also not congruent with your personality, you don't actually develop. You become a good actor at faking shit and talking about a script, but you don't actually become better at talking to people.
And women can sense the incongruency.
Exactly.
They pick up on it. They're like, what you're saying is going one direction, but your body language and vibes are going the other.
Yeah.
And then you just feel weird.
Yeah. It feels weird even when you're saying it, even if you've rehearsed it many times.
That's exactly it. If you feel weird saying it, they're going to feel weird hearing it. You find out, you learn this through doing it more, that your whatever your baseline is contagious.
Yeah.
So if that's a weird dude, everyone's going to be contagious and pick up the vibes.
Yeah.
So I found you get good at it when you actually just don't give a fuck, right?
Yeah. So that's exactly what I thought. Is after a while I realized there's no way this is sustainable. There's no way I'm going to have success with this long term. And even if I do have success, these chicks are not even here for me. They're here for this weird script thing that is not me. And I basically just like tricked them into like having sex, essentially.
But did you actually get to the point where the script worked?
No,
okay.
The script never worked.
It never worked.
The script was terrible. So what I started doing was literally just like throwing myself into the fire and learning how to talk.
Yeah.
So for me, that was literally saying, like, I thought you were attractive, I just wanted to say hi, or like being...
We had the same line!
Exactly.
I would go up and say, hey, I thought you were so cute, I had to come over. And it wasn't a lie, I did think they were cute.
Yeah, and that's like the good thing is it's genuine, and even if you have nothing to say after that, it's the throwing yourself into the situation enough times you eventually are able to say the second sentence, and then the third.
They would call that the direct approach.
Exactly. Yeah, so I do like cold direct approaches and get very good at speaking off the cuff, and that actually developed my social skills very quickly.
How long did it take to get good, though? That's the real thing.
4 months.
That's it?
But I did it every day.
Wow.
And I treated it like the gym, like progressive overload. Like, how you go to the gym, you're like, okay, I benched 185 today, so I'm going to do 190 next time. I literally would go to my cold approach like session.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I did 3 the other day. I got to do 4. And I wouldn't leave until I did 4. And then the next time I do 5. And it got to the point where I'd like titrate up my progression in some way that was tangible.
Wow, you did more approaches than last time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it felt like you were failing yourself if you didn't beat your previous efforts.
Yeah.
So, and then I got to the point where it would be like literally right when I saw somebody, I'd go up to them. And then after that, it was about reducing the amount of time it takes me to go up to them. I don't know, extending the conversation, how many numbers I would collect in one day, how many dates I would subsequently go on.
Did you get good at getting because I found, especially, there's a difference between daytime and nighttime.
Yeah.
But I found at nighttime, it was never about collecting numbers.
No,
it was about, you got to just stay with the same person the whole time.
Yeah, if you didn't close them on the night, like you're never gonna get a drunk chick to go out on like a date with you
rarely.
after.
Like sometimes you'll get a text back. But I found I used to take the approach where I would go out at night. In the beginning, everyone does this, I think, because the numbers are like the dopamine hit. That's like the reward. You're like at the end of the night, you compare with your friends. Oh, I got 5 numbers. I got 6, and then it's like this dick measuring contest. But then you go to text those numbers or call them.
Yeah,
they don't answer. They don't respond to the text, and you're like. I even got to the point where I had made out with some of the girls, right?
And they'd still ghost you.
And in your head, you're like, okay, come on. She likes you enough to kiss me.
Yeah.
And then they still don't respond.
Yeah.
So I quickly put 2 and 2 together and I was like, no, you got to make a real connection.
Yeah.
So then I started doing it where I knew I got to the point where I was good at it when I could consecutively just choose one person that I liked and I would just stay with that person the whole night.
Was your origin story like similar to mine in terms of lack of success in like high school, or like how did you get into it?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I got into working out.
Okay.
Was I think I started working out at 15 or 14 even. Shit, I was young when I started working out. And it was because I was like this really short, obviously skinny, nerdy kid and picked on for being small. And it was like, I think that overlapped into feeling like I wasn't attractive to women.
Right.
So I was like, how do I boost my attractiveness? Well, I've got some weights. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing at first, but I quickly gained like abs. And I like at 15, not many kids have abs. And I had like a 6-pack.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if it was because I was ripped that I started like becoming more attracted to women, but I felt more attractive.
I think that's the biggest thing because I objectively didn't have a lot more success directly from like getting shredded or something. It came more from my attitude about my own self bleeding into my interactions. So like my perspective of how valuable I was would bleed into my confidence and how smooth I was and how confident I was.
You know what's trippy? You can be a fat guy and you can be just as successful if you have those same feelings.
Some of my best successes were when I was like bulking aggressively and looked like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's not about that. It's really funny to all these dudes who like put so much emphasis on their body at the gym. And you said it. It's really just validation from men.
Yeah, like to a degree, obviously looks matter. Where you can't be like atrocious, but I mean, as long as you do your best to maximize yourself, it's not going to be like a make or break if you have abs versus not have abs or like.
Yeah, like you can't be 500 pounds. Like, there's a limit here, but.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, my story was that. But then what happened was I had this one girlfriend and I had a daughter really young. And like, because I think I had low self-worth even when I was a kid, because I thought that my self-worth came from being physically fit.
Right.
So I had really low self-worth. And then that relationship was with a very unhealthy partner. She was horrible. Like the type who cheats and lies, like a compulsive liar, like a very, very unhealthy female. And then that like crushed me because I had no experience with girls. So I was crushed. And then I remember feeling like I would never meet another girl again. Like, so I was fully like emotionally dependent on this super unhealthy chick. And then when that finally ended for good, I just felt like I had nothing. And then I found out about the pickup stuff and I was like, oh, maybe I do have hope.
Right.
So yeah, then I got into it that way.
Yeah, it's typically like some like traumatic or like, I don't know if traumatic, but in general.
Mine was traumatic. Having a kid at like 17.
Yeah. So for you had like a big shift in your mindset to be like, rock bottom and then like climb your way back up to.
I was so depressed.
Yeah.
I started it from a place of like just misery.
Yeah. So it's definitely, and once you learn this stuff for the first time too, it feels like you've opened the floodgates sort of, because before I would always have thought you have to meet people through friend groups and social circles, and there's no other way to do it. Because even when I started, it's not like online dating was a huge thing. It was like there's like Plenty of Fish and like OkCupid and stuff.
Plenty of Fish was awful.
Yeah.
I hope this camera doesn't cut off. Hold on. that is pushing its limits.
Okay, so honestly, I don't know exactly what I was left off saying, but
Sorry.
no, we took a break because we had to reset the cameras and
Empty bladders.
yeah. So we're back on the PUA discussion, and like for me, a lot of it was honestly trying to get to a place where not only I felt like I was confident in my ability to, like, it isn't just about getting girls, it's about facilitating like social interactions in a way that you feel can, like, you have some control of the situation, you're able to handle yourself in a public environment without being embarrassed or anxious. And the most beneficial aspect I found above and beyond actually having a healthy dating life was it would bleed into things like job interviews, business presentations in university. Sure. I felt like I had this innate skill that no one else had because I was like, I'm way better at all you fuckers than talking. Like in the job interview, like waiting room, I'd just be sitting there like, you know how many hot girls I've talked to? Like, this is fucking easy. And it would actually like translate.
Yeah,
because it's like if you can talk to like terrifying like hot girls, talking to some random dude about, you know, business stuff, not too hard. So for me, a lot of people, I think they frown upon the pickup stuff because they see it as this, you know, like hedonistic, you know.
They see it as manipulating women. They
That's
don't understand that it's really not about the woman. It's about you and just gaining confidence.
Yeah. Like it's not even, at first it's about getting laid, but also it's about even knowing you can get laid. That's a big part of your mindset shifting to an area that's not so insecure about everything. It's about becoming emotionally healthy in your ability to facilitate social interactions in general, in my opinion. So like for me, it went above and beyond just the get girls thing and, you know, make up for lost time in high school sort of thing, and went into actually becoming a man, in my opinion. And I think a lot of guys, especially in today's environment, like it's a lot different when we were doing the pickup stuff, probably, where like this stuff wasn't going on with the, you know what, and people are stuck in their houses. But in addition to that, the more,
how would you do it now?
Yeah, the more online stuff gets too, it's like considered more and more weird to be like a cold approach guy or something.
Who gives a fuck?
That's what I think though too, because I think it's easier to set yourself apart from people who are like hermits at this point. If you were out and about and you were at a grocery store and you saw an attractive girl and you're able to hold a fluid, intellectual, like good conversation.
And with the amount of fear going on, how refreshing would that be for her? If you were actually good on your toes and you could keep up with her conversation wise, because, you know, women are so much more advanced than men socially speaking.
Yeah.
They just mature faster, and these are skills they learn sooner, and they learn skills that men usually never learn. So almost in a way, it's like learning pickup kind of gets you up to speed to be on par with where women naturally are.
Yeah,
in a sense. But I think that women would really appreciate a good interaction, even if that woman is taken. And a lot of guys are afraid of it because they're like, well, what if she has a boyfriend? It's gonna hurt the rejection, or she doesn't want it. They defeat themselves before they get into it. They come up with a million reasons why it's a bad idea to talk to her. But like, realistically speaking, I found that the women really appreciate you, and the whole framework of leaving them better than when you found them. Even if like she's taken and she rejects you, usually if you do it and if you're coming at it from the right perspective with a big smile on your face, she actually feels happy. Yeah. Like she is enjoying the interaction.
And it's memorable versus having 50 guys in their DMs who are saying, you're so hot.
Yeah, anyone can do that.
Yeah, and that's what everyone does now. So it's becoming more, as much as it seems like women are inundated with opportunity to a point that it disproportionately bolsters their ego.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's also easier and easier to set yourself apart as a man, in that most guys are pussies who do everything online now. And I truly think that if you're able to have a fluid, cold conversation off the bat from no, you know, prior knowing them or anything, that sets you apart from every other guy, like, so drastically.
Yeah.
Like, no one's able to do that now, I feel like. So
yeah. Do you think it's getting less? Obviously, with all this stuff going on, it's less common. But even before that, you think it was getting less common for guys to cold approach?
I think at the rise of Tinder and all the apps and stuff, I think it was becoming more. It is, I will admit, very time efficient to use the apps, but there's no reason while you're out and about just doing your errands and stuff, if you come across somebody you find attractive, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to have a conversation.
Feels like a superpower, right?
Yeah.
It does. Like I was saying to you when we first chatted that it was, I think, what caused my channel to rise in success, because it translates not just to job interviews, but making these videos.
Yeah.
You feel like you're more confident in your ability to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
And that when you're this becomes your job, and your job is to talk.
Yeah.
I don't have to describe the benefits of that. So it's the benefits are countless.
And if there's anything that is promising about it too, like I definitely think there's newbie gains from it. Like, when you go to the gym and you first start, you gain disproportionate amounts of strength relative to when you've plateaued, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when you first start doing this, the first approach, terrifying. First few approaches, pretty fucking scary. After a while, even if you're literally stumbling on your words, it gets to a point where you're more expecting and you kind of are okay with it of getting rejected. You start to accept rejection as like a normal outcome, and it's not of 100 approaches, how many are going to translate into a number, how many of those numbers translate into dates, how many of those dates translate into a long-term relationship, like 1% if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So maybe not the lays, like you might get better percentage than that, but like ultimately finding a good partner of 100 cold approaches, it's a lot lower even for like top tier elite attractive guys than you would think.
Yeah.
So I think people get very uncomfortable with the idea of rejection, when in reality it's like you have to expect that that's going to happen, and it will inevitably, you will crash and burn. That's the whole point, and that's how you learn how to overcome that and speak more fluently and become better at, getting closer to a successful social interaction sort of thing.
I'm fascinated with where that fear stems from, because if you look at it from the whole tribal standpoint, I'm sure you know this, but I don't know how many viewers know this. Back in the day, we're designed to live in tribes. We still are. Yeah. And it's like, imagine there's like 5 or 10 women in the tribe. If they reject you, you're toast. Yeah. Your genes will not pass on. You're never going to have sex. And it's like these fears are still instilled in us today, even though it went from 5 to 10 women to like 5 to 10 million women in, I don't know, I can't say in a city, but in any given area, there's millions of women.
Yeah.
But we're still programmed for tribal life. And these programmed effects of tribal life transition into like a lot of problems we see, not just women. I mean, I could go off and on why we feel so lonely, and it's because we're all now living in individual homes when we used to live in actual like gatherings and groupings of people. And I feel like our current state of affairs, like the current way we live, is counterproductive to our general happiness, just because we're not designed to live this way, and we're trying to force like a square shape into a round hole. And it doesn't work no matter how hard you push. And this is why people have to convince themselves. I'm going off on a total tangent, but when it comes to women, we have this fear where there's some men who they have admitted they would rather go to war. You've heard this, right? They'd rather have to fight to their death than approach a woman. That's crazy. What a fear.
Yeah, and even the scarcity you mentioned of, you only have 5 or 10 people in a tribe or whatever, it definitely, you can see it bleed into relationships and people holding on to toxic, emotionally unhealthy partnerships just because they think they can't do better or, replicate their current scenario again.
They think they can only do worse,
Yeah, so they end up staying with somebody they're like totally unhappy with based on the fact that they don't think they can do better. And that's, I think, where a lot of this, the benefit of this, thing that people frown upon as like PUA, like, the PUA stuff can be a bit slimy and whatever, but
the
this
reciting lines shit.
Yeah, we're not really talking about PUA. That's just our way to discuss the topic of talking to females.
No, we're talking about going out and just being, we're basically what they would call the natural approach. Just being yourself and starting a thread of conversation with a stranger.
Yeah, and people conflate that with like manipulation when in reality it's, why can I not talk to a guy and have a fluid conversation? Why can I not talk to a girl? And it's the same thing, and if I happen to click with her, like maybe you want to hang out again. Like that's a very natural progression of social interaction, I would think. But instead they view it as, guy walks up to girl equals creepy. It's like, if you make it creepy, it can be creepy, but how about you just fucking talk normally, So I think it's definitely something that is becoming more and more,
unfortunately, uncommon. Because I think it almost feels like a rite of passage that men should learn how to do.
And I see something very commonly too is men who think that the path to getting women is success or financial or whatever, and then they neglect the very basic component of being able to talk to humans, and they end up in this position of power or authority or money, and then they've neglected the social aspect so much that now they're like this insecure, like 40-year-old rich guy who's trying to make up for lost time in a disproportionate way and like date, like 18-year-old models and 20-year-olds and shit. But they're so socially awkward too. They don't even have the emotional stability to trust that the girl's with them for the right reasons.
And she's not.
And they're not. And
like if you haven't built up that skill set, then
he's not confident he can actually get her without the money and without the blah blah blah.
Because he couldn't.
Exactly. So that's where also the main reason you do it too is you can only accumulate wealth and success through time in such a, however quick you can do it. It's not the quickest thing. There's no overnight success really. So if you're a 20-year-old kid who like drives a piece of shit car, lives with his parents, has $10 in his bank account, I can relate to that. That kid, there's no way you're going to compete financially or success-wise with a guy who's in his 30s or whatever and has had a decade plus to accumulate these resources over you. But you can go out and talk to people and become literally better at him socially within 6 months of trying. Like, that's the kind of thing people don't do. And then that thing translates into even your ability to generate that wealth as you get older and to, interact with people in healthy ways. I think it's just a severely neglected component of becoming a man. I think that I'm not even saying you need to go Sarge and do the whole like.
I forgot about that word.
Yeah,
I totally forgot.
Yeah, you don't need to dedicate blocks of time to cold approaching en masse, but it's just about being, if you're able to just talk to people without getting crippling anxiety, like that's the ultimate goal, and then translate into all areas of your life. And that's what I found was like so valuable.
It is
above and beyond.
It's so unfortunate that now more than ever people are shamed for doing that.
Yeah.
Like they're seen as doing something, like we said, manipulative, something wrong, when our society is fucked.
What was your channel like before? Like you mentioned, you had an old channel that was about like social interaction, like sort of.
Yeah, so I had a really old channel that was about like learning how to get good with women, and this is like in the infancy days of YouTube. And then I had a second one after that, which was I still got one video up. It's called